All right, we're back on. So this is another part 2 of my talk show today, and we're going to talk about things that are happening in the community. So my main topic that I want to bring up is depression and suicidal, and I wanted to talk about this due to the memories of some young boys who have taken their life recently. Especially today as we speak. Last week a boy took his own life, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what causes him to do it and why have he decided to take his life, and in the most horrific way possible. Okay, so first I want to give you guys a definition of what is depression exactly. Depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. Also called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. It affects how you feel, think, behave, and can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. You may have trouble doing normal day-to-day activity, and sometimes you may feel as if life isn't worth living. Okay. So the reason why I picked this topic today and I wanted to bring it out is there's a large rise of suicidal going on in the African community. And I'll just speak specifically, in the Sudanese community, a lot of newer kids have taken their lives in the last 4 years. And this is not just only the pandemic or COVID related, but I can only imagine that the things we're going through with the COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown and all of those are pretty much escalating it even more. So with these youths killing each other, and most of them are between ages of, they're mostly in their teens, between the ages of 12 all the way up until 25 mostly. And these are younger kids. They're younger kids that are completely depressed and that are taking their lives, whether it's by homicide or it is by suicidal as well. But this one, it was mainly happening due to a suicidal homicide. And it was pretty tragic. So this kid, I didn't really get his deep information, what's his name or anything. I spoke to some of their relatives as I got the news, and it was pretty devastating. And they're doing the funeral next weekend as well. A lot of people have come in town for this kid memorial. And it just brings a lot of questions. Why are these kids taking their lives? And I know in our African community, we're going to talk about this. And this is something we really need to talk about and create an awareness. We're losing our youth. Our youth are dying. They are killing themselves or killing each other. Okay? It's not even another race that is taking off another race. It's within that race or within that tribe or within that community that they are taking on each other. And I can understand there's, number one, there's a lot of confusion that is going on, okay, between what is our culture and also what is the American culture, okay? There's a lot of confusion with that. And there's also a lot of confusion in the political world in general, how the system have coordinated us to be, okay? All of those have an effect in our behavior, in our mental thoughts, and in how we're supposed to live our life normally, okay? So many of these stories has been brought up to me. And, it just sums it all into one big general statement that I could give to you guys, because these people would have to come on and bring on their personal story as well in order for the viewers to hear and understand what is going on. But as me, Ellie Naimal, who has a platform to talk to you guys about these things, I can only generalize it and tell the stories in the best way I possibly can. What is happening with certain issues in the community. But to hear better from an actual victim or for a person who have done a suicidal attempt, once they are ready to come forward and talk about it, this will help our community. And it will help our community a lot. Because I know as Africans, we don't really talk about these things. We don't like to come forth about this. And it doesn't have to be, your face being shown on TV. It can just be a phone call, being anonymous, and tell your story. because these are the things that we need to share. We all have a testimony in different walks of life that we go through, and when we give our testimony, it's going to help someone. It's going to save someone's life, and it's going to help them change it so they know that they are not alone. Most of these teenagers that are going through depression and dealing with depression and no one to talk to, most of them feels like they are alone. Most of them feels like they are the only one going through it because they're not hearing other people's story, okay? And this depression and suicidal rate is very high among men, okay? African men. Now, it just creates more question, you know? Why are our African men committing a lot of suicide, you know? Now, if we go back a little bit to the tradition, I'll give you guys some couple of stories, you know? Our elders knows what it's like to struggle, okay? In Africa, it's not easy. It's definitely not anything like here in the United States where you have a TV, you have a game, you can just name anything you want and you have it, okay? Where in Africa, people are struggling to survive, just to have water, okay? So our elders have naturally lived through that to know that the struggle is something that they have to endure. It's something that they have to go through, okay? Now, the way they cope with each other, you know, women's, they have their own social moment, they do their get-together, whatever their normal daily life is that makes them happy. The girls do their own thing, the children do their own thing, the men do their own thing. That is the way they correspond their lifestyle there in Africa, okay? But here in America, it's a different story, okay? Most of our elders that have come into the United States, now anyone that comes into the United States above age of, I believe, 30, yeah, around 30 and older, mostly 35, because 35 and under, your brain is still flexible and open to learn new things. But by the time you're 35 and up, you're pretty much set and you really don't want to be too open-minded anymore into new things, okay? So most people that come into the United States at an older age, their mind is already set in the culture. They may live in a different society, different culture, but the way they think, the way they behave is still pretty much back home. So it's like you're physically in the United States, but you're mentally back home, okay? And which is fine. But when their children are born into the United States, or they brought their children at a much younger age, where they pretty much start their school here and went to their school here, then whatever the child is learning outside of the culture, or pretty much at school, it does not align with what they are learning from their elders as well, okay? So these takes a lot of explanation. I'm sure, you know, a lot of parents have done their best to really create a balance into their children's lives, so there's no much confusion, okay? Now, with some of the children who comes here in their teens or in their 20s into the United States, they can easily conform into the American society, okay? Now, there's pros and cons to that. So the only way they may not conform into the society and still reserve their culture or think like back home is when they hang around tight circle within their own community, okay? You could live here in the United States and even born in the United States, but still think in the cultural way when you are in the culture, no matter what country you're in, okay? Now, with the children that are growing up here and have pretty much conformed into the American society, is they understand, they see what's going on in the society, but no one can really answer their questions, okay? With the government system, where we come into the United States to make a better life for ourselves, to work hard, maybe become entrepreneurs, maybe become successful people, and invest back into your country, take your children back into your country, have them visit there, let them learn something outside of their circle, okay? They don't get that opportunity because when we come here, we settle in and let the government take care of us, okay? Whether it's Section 8, public housing, governor assistant, depending on food stamp, cash, and things like that, okay? where it is mostly the mom at home. If she's a married woman, it's a mom's at home, and the dad is mostly at work. And there's still that cultural divide between, men and women as well, where the men are barely ever at home. So the kids are always in the house with their mom, okay? And majority of the time, depending on what area they live in and how much they are being supported by the government system, that also affected the growth and the development of the child, okay? Because then, in most areas that we settle to live in are mostly in poverty. We settle for less. Africans here in the United States, they settle for less. But there's still majority of the Africans, okay, who, I don't know if I would say majority or very few of the African people who have come out of that and decide that, you know what, I could do more. I could give my children something greater or better, send them to a better school, live in a better neighborhood, buy a house or just, a townhome, wherever you want to live in, as long as it's a good neighborhood where they can be safe and free and not see much violence or anything going on, okay? So most of this depression is developed and rise on lack of communication, okay? Because these children have questions. They have things that they want to talk about, but they don't know who to go and talk to, okay? No matter how deep the culture is or how deep the situation is, nobody's going to listen to them. Now, some of our elders, you come up with a problem to them and you said, I'm sad, or they'll say, what makes you sad? And then if you try to explain it, if it's not, strong enough or it's not a strong reason, they just brush it off. Or in another term, African way parenting is, you're supposed to be strong, you're tough, you could do this, and our elders, we have gone through it, especially among women. I'll just, kind of stick to the women's for now. If a woman was talking to a younger girl who pretty much has a question, she'll say, my dear, in Africa, we rise when the first chicken make the noise, and we go to sleep after all the children went to bed. Now, what do they do throughout that whole entire day? You wake up, you get the kids ready for school. Once you get them ready for school, then they go out in the wilder to go collect some sticks so they could come home, make fire, and then go to the grocery store, get the groceries, and then cook, prepare the food for their husbands and for their children. And before you know it, everybody goes to bed and she's still up, okay? They'll usually tell you those stories, but it's a little bit different because the American kids here, most of them, they have it really good. They have it really, really good, So to have these problems surface, it confuses them. It makes them wonder, how are you depressed? Why would you want to take your life when you are being put in a good school or in a good college, No matter how much they try to explain them, their elders will not understand, okay? So to speak specifically to the youth and all of the teens out there who have felt this certain type of way, or you felt like, you're alone, we just want to let you know that you are not alone, okay? There are, if you have a close friend, okay, at least one person in your life that you can trust and be able to tell them all of your problems, even just letting them out, that helps. That's one thing. And then another one is, if you have a wonderful parent that is willing to listen and talk to you about it, trust in your parents, trust in your parents to communicate with them. Now, if any of your parents may not understand it, for sure they may not understand, definitely seek out to that one person that you trust. And that person can be a friend, it can be a coworker, it can be a colleague, it could be just someone you knew for a while and you knew that you could trust, And the other thing too, there is a hotline that you could call as well. And I'm going to pull up those information towards the end. You can call them and they can refer you to someone that you could speak to, psychologist, someone who is very good in these, behavior and cognitive disorder and development as well. Now, I know in our African community, we are not taught to go see a psychiatrist. We are not taught to speak to someone who is a professional in those things. And, I don't quite understand 100% why, but I think it's a prideful thing in Africans that we have. But these young boys are taking their lives in silence, And the silence, it has been going on for generational age. It has been going on for a while, where they just hold in their problems and they're afraid to speak on it, and they're ashamed to speak on it because maybe the response they'll get back is just laughable, But it's time for our African people to really acknowledge that depression is real. It exists, okay? And depression is what leads to suicide, It's good to reach out to those, even if you don't know who has a depression in your household, just naturally communicate with your children, communicate with your teenagers, especially teenagers, because teenagers like to be in their own world, And a lot of times when they're in their own world, we don't know what's really going on in their mind, what they're thinking, or who they're associating with, okay? So as a tip as a parent, communicate with them, even if you feel like you're bugging them, it's good. Keep bugging them, You can't go a whole day without saying anything to your child, even just a simple thing. How was your day? How was your school? What did you do today? Anything specific? Those things can enlighten a person, okay? Because, for example, if somebody asked me, what did you do today? I'll be excited to tell them my story, and you just feel that relief, and it replaces the sadness with joy, okay? Like they said, happiness is like the medicine. It's the best medicine you can have, okay? So it replaces some of the sadness that you could feel and experience as well. So I just want to give my condolences to a lot of the youth that have taken their life, and specifically this last kid that really gave me the strength to speak out on this, who just took his life. He basically took a gun and pointed through his mouth and pulled the trigger. That's the most tragedy way for someone to take their life, and it's really sad, hearing this story. And before he took his life, he wrote a letter to his roommate, and he basically, it's like an apology saying that, I'm sorry I let you down, and I won't be here to help you pay, all of these bills. And they were both roommates while they're in college. And so my condolences to him and his family, who are pretty much going to be traumatized by this incident. And, my prayer goes out to you guys as well. So this is one of the latest incidents I have heard already. There's been many incidents before that. And that's why I really want to speak out on this. Communicate with your children. Do the best you can to talk to them. Because this suicide stuff is really become it's really opening up in our faces what is happening in the community, If no one talks about it, nobody would even know it exists. Nobody would even know who's going to take their life next, And it's just devastating to be caught out by a surprise, on this child who took his life in the most tremendous, horrific way possible, okay? So that's my message to you guys out there, about depression and suicide. So now to give you guys a little bit more information on how you can reach out or get help if possible is, if you go on this website, suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can type that on your URL. If you notice someone that is depressed, or they are having suicidal thoughts, or they feel like life is worthless, reach out to them, talk to them. And if for some reason you're doing everything you can and it is not working, go on this website. It would have all the information that you need, and also their number, I will give it to you right now while we're on the live stream, is National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. So you could save somebody's life, If you notice someone, they're about to do something very strange, stay with them. Don't let them be alone, If you're afraid that they're still going to continue and proceed with it, contact that number, Suicide Hotline Prevention. It's very important. This is something we really need to start looking into, especially with the lockdown, the COVID-19, all of these things that are going on. I can't imagine how many children are going through it as well, with abuse in the home and also being at home all the time, remotely, going to school online. So these are just thoughts that we want to keep open-minded about, and know that something could happen. Be open-minded and be vigilant and know that anything could happen. So next week, we're going to continue to talk about this, different topics. And if someone has a story, please, send us a message or an email. We would like to tell your story, because your story could encourage a lot of other people. It can also save somebody's life. So it's very, very important that we start sharing our testimonies on these problems as well. So we have opened the topic with depression and suicidal. So if anyone has a story and they want to share their story, we will present it here at Temporal Africa TV. And, if you want to remain anonymous, that's totally fine. We have a number where only your voice can be heard as well. Otherwise, if you like to be in front of the camera and want to tell your story, we'll bring you on as well. So thank you for joining us today. And, prayer to everyone out there. Stay vigilant. Stay positive as much as you can. Don't let anyone bring your mood down. Don't let anyone make you feel some type of way. So we're all equal. We're all human beings. Have a wonderful night.
Nouveau à Minneapolis, Tempo Afrique Travel. Vous voulez voyager? Achetez vos billets d'avion à l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, pas de problème de connexion, pas de problème de transfert de vol. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, c'est le voyage en toute tranquillité, en toute beauté, de votre maison jusqu'à votre destination. Votre satisfaction est notre plaisir.